Hey, this is Mike D at downpeppertreeland.com, and we're talking about Andy Gibb today. Big star during the time Mike G, my director, was in junior high and high school. He was everywhere on television, magazines, radio. The golden guy who had it all, looks, talent, laughing on the outside but crying on the inside. He died young, so let's talk about his story. He all the Bee Gees came from Australia, although they're perceived as British. They started in Australia. While the Bee Gees were making it big, Andy was behind, watching in the shadows, learning how to become a star. And Barry Gibb finally said to him, "If you really want to do this, take a year and just play with your guitar in clubs. They're going to throw beer at you, whatever. Just do it for a year." And that's what he did. So he became very polished, probably the wisest advice he could get. And then they were going to launch him as a pop star. He did have a secret. He had a secret wife and daughter right around that time. Not a great idea for a pop star. So they had to all be hidden. And this was before social media. They could hide secrets back then. And it was never on Tiger Beat magazine or anything like that. Okay. We never knew, right? So in 1977, first album, Flowing Rivers, massive. The song goes to number one. Who does that, right? Right off the bat, number one. It's called I Just Want to Be Your Everything. I'm sure you know it. It's a classic. It's a evergreen perennial song. He follows it up with another number one, Love Is Higher Than a Mountain, Love Is Thicker Than Water. Another great song. I bought the album. I loved it. The Bee Gees were doing falsetto, very high voices. He was doing a more mid-range, a little more pleasing to the ears, I think, and maybe had was going to go beyond disco, where the Bee Gees faded really quickly after disco. The next album, 78, was called Shadow Dancing.
Shadow dancing.
Yeah, exactly. And the Bee Gees were in the background, so that was their voice in the background. Went straight to number one. So he had three number ones in a row. That very seldom would a pop artist do that. So he was launched, into the stratosphere of pop. Like I said, he was on magazines, talk shows, game shows, all kinds of things during this time. And he was very likable. I was reading, maybe he was some kind of monster or something. He wasn't at all. He was really nice to everybody. The only person he did damage to was himself. And he was getting into cocaine around this era. He had the money. Cocaine would give him extra energy to stay longer in the studio. And he just fell into it. It helped him out with his lifestyle at the time. It worked for him. Next single was Our Love, Don't Throw It All Away. Our Love. Great song. It's still played on radio to this day. I hear it in supermarkets. Everlasting Love. He was good at easy listening ballads as well. He really excelled at those. By 1980, there was starting to be some problems. New Wave was becoming very popular. He wasn't going to do it. He wasn't going to do New Wave. It wasn't his style. He released a song called Desire. It made it to number 4. It was actually a Bee Gees song. They gave it to him. Maybe his songwriting was running out of steam, or it happens with a lot of pop artists. And it did well, but it was a Bee Gees song that he sang on. They inserted his vocals. So the wheels are starting to fall off the bus. It wasn't a platinum album. It was gold, a little bit lower. And then the next song was a ballad with Olivia Newton-John, and that was called I Can't Help It. Very, very soft ballad. So it was popular at the time, but has since been forgotten. In 1980, they ended his record contract. That was it. He was getting to be too erratic, too unstable, couldn't handle concerts, not showing up. The already big drug problems by 1980. That was the end of his recording career, believe it or not. A really young guy, like 24. So they put out a greatest hits. I mean, that's death, when your record label does that. So end of 1980 comes the greatest hits and goodbye. Thank you for playing. And they thought that's the only thing that would sell. And it did. And he had one last song called Time Is Time. If you remember anything from this video, go look up that song, Time Is Time. I mean, there's no video. It was right before MTV. That might have helped him, but it was 1980, right before it. It's a great song. I think the vocals are absolutely fantastic. Then in my 1981, he moves over to television. Probably a wise move. There's a show called Solid Gold that's very popular. All the kids watched it, and he would interpret other people's songs, whether it was, Foreigner or Styx or Barry Manilow. He would sing other people's songs every week on camera. He was very photogenic, and that was a good move for him. He only lasted 2 years because he started not showing up on the set again. He just had erratic, when you have drug problems, you're not able to function all the time. It's like a Judy Garland thing or an Elvis thing. And he had endless access to drugs. And it was starting to get worse at this point. This was 82. By 83, he was fired from the show basically, or removed, whatever you want to call it. Then he went into plays. He tried the theater, Pirates of Penzance, and he did great some nights, and other nights he wouldn't show up. So very erratic. He did Joseph and had to be replaced by David Cassidy. You guys know I know a lot about David Cassidy. They rushed him over there to replace Andy Gibb, even though he was popular, charming. Once again, he was damaging himself. He had inner problems with his self-esteem. By 84, he was in Vegas, already a Vegas performer, which they call the Elephant's Graveyard, kind of for the end of your career. But he's like 25 years old at the Riviera Hotel in Las Vegas. So must have been depressing for him, but he would grind out these performances like 7 nights a week, and he was purely a Vegas act at that point. After that, he went to Asia. A lot of pop artists go to Asia because that's another market they haven't really hit yet. And he toured all throughout Asia. That's why you didn't see much of him during that time. He did fall in love with Victoria Principal. They had a duet called All I Have to Do Is Dream. That was his last song. And she finally said to him, "You have to choose the drugs or me." And he chose the drugs. I mean, it was crazy. It was getting really dark and crazy. He went to the Betty Ford Center around that time. They threw him on television shows. He's on Punky Brewster. God only knows what that must have been a hot mess at that point. He's on Gimme a Break and Punky Brewster, if you can find that, just playing himself. They didn't know what to do with him at that point. Finally, Robin Gibb lives in a beautiful castle in England, and Robin takes him into the castle. He writes a few more songs. He writes one more good song called Man on Fire. You want to check that out. And then he overdoses and he dies at age 30. So it's a tragic story, but try to remember him at his best. Check out his videos and his music and his work. And remember him, he was just a skyrocket, shot across the sky real fast. And check out his work at his best, and maybe try to learn a life lesson that he just couldn't handle the drugs. And I'll leave it at that. Sorry to end on a bummer, but I'm Mike D at downpeppertulane.com. Thank you.